Yes, it is now time for emerging issues, and this week our emerging issue is don't be a Pokemon trainer. Now, people are going to go, hang on a sec, we like playing Pokemon Go, we like playing on the Switch, the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS, but what we are talking about is the motto of Pokemon is got to catch them all, but we know in NRL Fantasy that it is not possible to catch them all.
Exactly right. And there's hundreds of players that you can choose from, and you may love 40 of them, let's just say. You can't have them all. You've only got 21 spots, and they're all based on positions that you want to have for a versatile squad. So, whilst you might see, Ryan Pappenhausen comes to mind for me. He's someone I love watching and I'd love to have, but there is only so many players that you can have that are going to present you the value that you need to fulfill a whole season.
That's right. And now that we've got a full round of data of scores, we're going to potentially see players that, the grass looks green on the other side. Now, Jamie Humphries, for those who are not watching this on YouTube, has obviously got his massive cannons out here making a pass from dummy half. But we see round 1B, we see some big scores. And it's very important that we get to work between round 1 and round 2 and work out who's actually worth targeting and who might just be a mirage because they got a nice score in week 1.
Yeah, exactly right. That guy's got similar arms to Andy, doesn't he?
I don't know if they're quite as big as Andy's, but
Andy's massive. But no, exactly right. You got to have certain players that you're going to have to be as must-haves, and then it's well, who do you actually move on to get him? This can also be why you leave some cash in the bank, or it might be where you decide to sacrifice someone just to hopefully make the money here, like a Luke Metcalf.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you touched on just before, there's plenty of players to pick. Now, as you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, for those not listening, got some screenshots here. So one from Jamie Jamie Brown, NRL Fantasy Analysis on YouTube, and then the Casual Athlete, so logging in the guys there doing some great stuff on YouTube. What you can see with both these videos is they're looking at a lot more than 21 players, and stating that there's plenty of value in more than 21 players. And that's the thing, right, is that you're not going to have every single guy that's undervalued, but you want to make sure that the guys that are severely undervalued, if they've popped up in round 1 and you didn't have them in your team, that's where you want to make that work to get them in.
Yeah, that's it. And I think we're all in a pretty lucky spot this round because there wasn't really any suspension issues for fantasy relevant players. There was no major injuries apart from someone that you had, which we'll get onto later. So there's probably you're free to make these trades rather than chasing your tail trying to fix your team. Out of necessity, you can actually do these moves as something, I see value in this and this is what I want to do rather than what I have to do.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head that we've got that luxury. And that's opened up with the minor buy and rule change. So again, we've already done an emerging issues section on it. But the fact that in rounds 13, 16 and 19, you only need 13 on the pitch and you got 14 teams to get those players from means that obviously we can hold the Payne Haas's of the world. But what it also does, mean that we'll probably have it's effectively more trades to use because we don't need to manage the buy rounds as much. But the other thing is it'll mean that in those rounds, it's actually going to be really hard to catch up on coaches. So you're going to want to make sure your team value is high because if you fall behind, it might be a lot harder than previous years to catch up.
Yeah, that's it. And that's where a lot of good coaches who planned very early on for the buy rounds were able to make that ground because last year in the minor buy rounds, you had to field 17 instead of 13. So some people might have been playing with 14, 15, where you played with 17. You're catching up 100 points each round, roughly, if you've got those guns. This year, you don't have that luxury.
Yes, because on top of that, if you're able to hold Payne Haas, Isaiah Yeo, Nathan Cleary, if they stay fit, coaches aren't going to have to spend trades bringing them back in. And that's, when coaches run out of trades at the back end of the season, obviously around 20, we get that final 8. If coaches have been able to conserve more trades or be more aggressive and build up that team value, they're going to not need to spend that many trades in the back end of the season. It'll literally just be replacing those players that have got injured and are no good for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you just brought back trauma for me last year. I brought Cleary in 3 times, I reckon. And then he just kept on getting injured or whatever. But exactly right. You're going to be able to conserve trades. So you'll also not be able to catch up in that round 18 through 20 where a lot of coaches probably have spent all their trades and then are having to play catch up when they get that final 8 and then run out again. So, yeah, it's important to be pretty diligent with holding your trades. These Origin guys, because you're going to have more room to actually make extra trades. to fulfill a squad to get to that 14, 15 mil team value.
Yes, absolutely. Now, of course, with that, we do need to actually look at the players that are the candidates. So we've got Jamie Humphries, obviously scored 75. Corey Horsburgh looking very, very good there. We've then also got Tom Gilbert, who also looked very, very good. And maybe some coaches be like me, they've got a Ryan Catchman or something that they really need to trade out, or Kelma Tuolangi, he didn't do that good. But what we're also needing to do is actually prioritise who can we actually get in, because if we don't have cash in the bank, it might mean that, hey, you give Tommy Gilbert another week because Jamie Humphries is going to have a much smaller B and more likely, if he stays in that half role, to increase rapidly next week.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's a matter of, again, position-wise as well. So Jamie Humphries may present the best value for you in terms of cash generation, but is it a half that you need as well? So you might be short in the mids. So therefore, Tom Gilbert or Corey Horsburgh will make more sense. Edge is actually a pretty trickier spot this year. So Tom Gilbert being that dual, he actually may present the best value for you long-term. Especially with him being the captain, we know his job security is going to be right there. Again, Jamie Humphries has got Lewis Dodd there. I don't think Lewis Dodd is getting that jersey back anytime soon because from the trials, he was horrible. And Jamie Humphries took that team on his back, and then he was really good in this game. So it's just a matter of balancing your squad on who you think you want to get in. And if you've got the cash to do it, then just jump.
Yes. Now, something that we can do, and I think we mentioned it off air before, is that obviously the Titans players haven't locked just yet, and I don't think they would have by the time people are listening to this. So if someone had taken a Keanu Kinney or a Jaden Campbell, do you think if they really do need to find some cash that they might drop them down to an AJ Brimson before we lock out?
It's something I had thought of. I think if it's a Keanu Keeney and you drop to an AJ Brimson, I think that's good. But I think there's so much value in Jaden Campbell this year that I technically wouldn't do it just to get the first cash cow this week.
No, so that's very, very right. All right, moving on to what we want to do, and we want to follow Rich's advice. We don't want to be TLC chasing waterfalls. Now, DCE, obviously, we know he's been an awesome player, but he got a nice score this week, but I think it's very key for coaches, particularly those that are inexperienced. If you are going for a gun player that has a big score week one, there is the chance that in round two you will pay the price that is the most expensive that any coach will pay this year. So we don't really want to be chasing these scores from guys that we know what they'll do.
Yeah, exactly right. And I can attest to this a few years ago where I bought Isaiah Papali'i at 900 grand. And he ended up being 680 or something at the end because he just had some down games. And then you need to be able to spend your cash a little bit wiser. And unless you're planning on holding these guys, the guns are not your avenue as a cash cow. You need to get the mid-ranges or the cheapies. Like DCE, yeah, had a great game. It was fantastic for me in draft, but that included a try, intercepts, Manly running rampant. But he also kicked less than Luke Brooks. So all of a sudden, you're like, oh, okay, you're paying $750 for him instead of $720, but he could go down to $700 because he has a couple of like sub 50 games. So yeah, it's just one to, if you love the player, then go ahead and have fun with it. But yeah, take that into consideration.
For sure. Now, we've obviously spoken a fair bit about the guys that we're looking to trade in. The guys that we want to trade out. Now, I've got four main categories here. Obviously, players that end up with a role different to what we expected. That could be performance related as well. So maybe a Davy Muali. We'll talk about him, of course, in the Rabbitohs Dolphins section. But teams that are weaker or stronger than expected, players getting injured or suspended, that might potentially be Ryan Couchman for me with his ACL, or a guy that just isn't looking at. But the last category might be one that's really interesting this year because we've got so many cash cows that are promising, and it's a mid-ranger that might not rise quickly. And it won't just be because they put the K and the C around the wrong way and quickly, but Luke Metcalf is a guy, right? Got a round 4 bye, has scored under his break even in round 1. He will probably make money this year, but the issue is with less opportunities in these major buy round periods to catch up, he might be a guy that you need to move on for a cash cow that's making a lot quicker cash than he is.
Yeah, that's it. It's actually a round 5 buy as well, mate, there, just so we don't get crucified for giving the wrong data.
That's right, thank you.
But look, he's the perfect example because of that round 5 buy. He's now going to have to score 3 big scores just to get the price moving, and then he'll have that buy. So to me, like, so let's use him and Alex Seyfarth as the example because they both underperformed and are both quite highly owned as a mid-ranger. Alex Seyfarth, no buys until round 12, dual position, and has had a HIA. So there was a lot of stuff that went against him, whereas Luke Metcalf just didn't play that well. So for me, it'd be like, let's say I want to bring in a Jamie Humphries, who's going to generate that cash and has a similar scoring potential to Luke Metcalf. That to me is a no-brainer, and that can be a way that you get onto some of these guys. And that could be a reason of why that mid-ranger would be the trade out.
Yeah, that's really, really good analysis. It's a really good point because it might not be Metcalf, it might be Moali. If you've got a mid-ranger that's not going to make cash quickly, and it's not because of some bad luck, you probably want to move them on. And that we're not just saying Metcalf is a certain sell, but if he's the only guy that you can move out, then he might be that. But let's get into our key takeaways from this emerging issue, B. Now, of course, you want to identify players that you target by the magic number. Now, when we're talking the magic number during the middle of the season, what is it specifically that we're referring to?
Yeah, so the magic number is the dollars per point that they average, which essentially gives you an idea of, okay, their average is 35, so they're going to be priced at around a 480. I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but what you're wanting to do is, okay, you identify someone who's at that value, but you think they're going to average 45, which means that they're going to make the 13,500 or 13,650, whatever it is, times it by 10. So they're going to make that $134,000 for you to then make your next move either onto another depreciating asset or to another big gun.
Yeah, that's spot on analysis there. We're looking at it going, all right, this guy's currently priced at a 41. We expect him to be a 52. Let's dive in. But if we're going, this guy is now priced at 39 and we only expect him to 45, we'll probably look elsewhere. And I guess the key takeaway, obviously, being title Don't Be a Pokemon Trainer, you can't catch them all, big. So there's going to be some guys that you're just going to have to not have in your team because you can't afford them. The positional structure in your team doesn't work, and that's okay. Don't go carving out good guys that you've already got in your team to get a guy that might only just be slightly bit better than them.
Yeah, exactly right. I guess the example could be, Payne Haas scores an 81, Jermaine Hopgood scores a 49. So are people going to tear their team out to get Haas, where it's going to be $100,000 spend, where they could end up averaging the same overall? So, make those choices, but, just also trust your analysis.
Yes, make those choices indeed. And, making good choices includes liking and subscribing to Talking League Shorts because that is, of course, the end of emerging issues for this week.